Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. Today we're talking about My Hero Academia fanfiction called Cats and Coffee. In the description will be a little description of the fanfiction as well as where you can read it. So it starts with Aizawa. It's like before Izuku gets into UA, but he had just like expelled his entire first year, right? Okay, goodbye, you're all expelled. I have no work now, right? And then he kind of, I thought happens. He jumps in the middle of it. Quirk goes wrong from a kid who couldn't control it, and now he woke up and he's a cat, and so now he's like going around like as a cat, and obviously he doesn't really know how to navigate what to do. This is a new perspective, right? And obviously Hizashi and everyone else are worried about him because they haven't seen him for a while. But they continue looking. Meanwhile, Aizawa's struggling, right? He's cold, tired, hungry. He's never had to fight for scraps before, so like this is new to him. Then he runs into like a nice like a worker. She works at like some sort of cafe, and kind of alarm kind of started going off in his head too when when she found him. It's like she did end up giving him food, right? And he was like, "Oh, this lunch meat is like the best I've ever tasted in like a week." So he ends up, so he does end up eating and drinking like some food that she gave him. But she was sorry because she's like, "Oh, people like me are usually on thin ice." It's like, so I should probably get back to work for fired. And he's like, "Hold up. What does that even mean? People like you? What are we talking about here?" Right? And so, but he ends up, because he doesn't know where he is, so he wanders around and then he ends up coming across, what was it called? Aldrea Middle School? And he's heard about it, and that apparently like it's the reputation of the school is actually it's a shit school. It sucks. So like it's also not that far from like the bad side of town where it's like so like it has a terrible reputation basically. So it's like, you know what? Not surprising. But so it has a terrible reputation. And this is where he meets Izuku, because he meets Katsuki and the rest of his little gang, and they're picking on someone, and obviously Izuku intervenes, and of course they're immediately turn their attention towards him. And I was without even thinking, even like 'cause he's a cat, without even thinking, he immediately goes headfirst like into it and starts scratching at Katsuki's legs. It's like, he tried to use his quirk, it doesn't work because he's a cat, so of course it didn't work. And severely underestimated it because he immediately gets hurt too, because they turn their attention to him, so he immediately gets hurt too because they have like they don't care if he's a cat. They're like, oh, I guess we'll just like beat the shit out of you too. So they immediately, and Izuku immediately jumps in to protect him, covers himself, and then the bell rings, so that draws their attention, so they leave. And now Aizawa, he feels bad because he's like, he wasn't thinking, like he couldn't even help his form, but so he ended up getting him even more hurt than he probably would have been. So he feels real bad. And so Izuku immediately just looks at him and he's like, "Oh, it's like, I'm sorry about him." It's like, "Do you want some food?" And he kind of quickly kind of puts it together that like, well, not that it's a person, but he's like, "Oh, you must be," it's like, "Oh, you're really smart. You must be one of those animals with a quirk." And Aizawa is like, "Yeah, sure." Because like, what, I mean, it's the closest you could get, right? But as he's eating, because he shares, and Aizawa also shares food, because he's like, "You look like you haven't eaten either, so you're also eating some of this," which, he understands. But he apologizes. It's like, "Oh, Kachan's just like that." And like, Aizawa's meaning like, "You mean like a bully?" Like, okay, sure. Like, cause, he's trying to almost like sugarcoat it or like water it down. Like, "Oh, it wasn't, it's like make excuses for him." And it's like, there's no excuse for that. There's none. So after eating ice, I was like, okay, well, gotta get back on my way of finding my way to UA. Like, at least gotta find my way to it. But, Izuku, like, this is like the first companionship he's like had in who knows how long, right? So of course he's like, oh, like, I mean, I can, I take you home, and I have medical supplies while at home, because obviously, like, this is, to him, at least, an animal with a quirk. So, not talking to him like he's an animal. So, he's like, I have some medical supplies at home. And Aizawa stops at that because, I mean, he goes with them, obviously, because something, like, looking at Izuku is, like, tells him, like, this is probably, like, he's desperate for companionship, and then, like, something tells him he's probably, like, the first person, like, cat, really, like, companion he's had in forever. So, of course, he's like, okay. So he goes with him, on top of the fact that, like, he's injured and has, like, no idea where he's going or where he is. He has, like, a vague idea, but, like, no idea where Yue is from here. So he ends up going with him back to Izuku's house. While there, like, he's patching him up, and this is where he asks him, it's like, this is where he gets his name, right? They're like, because he asked him if he has a name, and like, well, let's go with a nickname, right? And so he leaves for like 2 seconds, and he sets his coffee down, and of course Aizawa takes full advantage of that, and he really started drinking from it, and he looks at him, it's like, that's my coffee. And so he's like, oh, he just called you coffee then, because he loves coffee. And then he quickly gets worried. He's like, are you supposed to have coffee? I don't think. And so, but like, he can't take the coffee away because, of course, Aizawa was like, no, don't come near me. So, and Izuku gives in. He's like, okay, fine. But this is my cup. You have to get your own. So, and then he's like, well, I can feed you like some things I have around here, but it's like we'll have to wait till we go to the pet store. And immediately, as like, he hisses, it's like, I'm not eating cat food. And Izuku's like, but I don't think. And so they like argue and go back and forth. And he's like, I don't think you're supposed to have human food. Can you even have that? Before he finally gives in, he's like, okay, fine, I'll give you that, whatever. But if you get sick, go outside. Don't 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 throw up in here. And so the next morning does come. It's almost kind of like established like a routine where he immediately looks at him and he's like, let's take a morning to each other. And he immediately looks at the coffee machine and he's like, oh my god, if I get PETA called on me, I swear, it's like I'm not supposed to be giving this to you, but it's fine. He's like a grown man, right? And obviously this is where Izuku has to go back to school, and he's asking like, oh, you're gonna be okay on your own, and Aizawa is responding. I mean, not that he could hear, like, I'm an adult, I'll be fine, right? But he can see the look on Izuku's face when he's like terrified to go to school, like he doesn't want to go. And Aizawa like thinks it's like, well, that had to be like an isolated incident. Like, even if like it's a trash school, even like the most, like, the dumbest teachers, the people who like aren't like should know like what's going on, and they do. But and that's where he kind of puts it together. He's like, unless they do know what's going on and they don't care, because if he has like a villainous quirk, then they're not gonna care if he's being bullied. And so they're gonna look at it and be like, whatever, and not really care. They'll care if he does something, but other than that, they're not gonna care if anyone does anything to him. And so this is where Aizawa starts having theories of like, okay, because alarms are going off, something isn't right with Izuku's home life, right? I mean, just like in the house as well as school, but like in like general, like something like isn't he's missing something. Something's adding up. But Izuku also hesitates to go because this is his first companionship he's had in like forever, right? And so he hesitantly like says like, I'll see you later, like, because he isn't sure if he'll still be there, because he left a window open in case he wants to leave and do whatever. But Aizawa like just nods his head like he'll still be here when he comes back. And so he with that he leaves, and that gives Aizawa plenty of time to just wander around the house and see like, what are we working with here, because like he's not seeing any of his parents at all, right? He finds pictures and he assumes like he sees him, okay, and then he sees another boy with spiky blonde hair, and he's like, that's the same kid that was immediately like beating them. So fantastic. And then he sees his mom, who's clearly like a firefighter, so he's like, okay, so maybe she's just on shift, even though he's still like, it's still alarming that like he's not seen like at all, not seen her, right? And so he enters Izuku's room and it's immediately like, oh Jesus Christ. He's like, wow, you've got an obsession. It's just all my heroes everywhere. He's like, my God, you've got a little bit of obsession here. And so he's just like looking at All Might merch. And then out of the corner of his eye, he just sees it, right? Because it doesn't fit in with the rest of them. And it's the figurine of him. And he's like thinking, he's like, oh no. He's like, I don't even have merch. So either he made that himself or he commissioned that. He's like, because I don't even have merch like that. So he's looking at it and he's like, where did he get a little figurine of him, right? He's like, it's pretty good. And he reads like a little note like attached to it at the end. It's like, if Eraserhead can do it, you can too. And so he's like, oh my God, like I have a fan. Like, not that he really wants fans, but he's, you know, feeling warm that he's inspired Izuku a bit. He's like, oh, okay, right? But this also kind of adds more to like his theory of like something, you know, like maybe having like a villainous quirk in some way, and like maybe he inspires that because people look at him differently. And then he finds the books of hero analysis, and he starts reading them, and he's looking at them like, holy shit, this is extremely detailed. What the fuck? So he's looking at it, he's like, thank God this kid is on our side, wants to be a hero. Because, oh my Jesus. So he's even thinking about like so far ahead. He's like, okay, it'll be fine, because he'll apply for UA, and when he gets accepted, I'll just like, you know, he'll be under me, like I'll guide him, like train him. It's like, it'll be completely fine. Because he was like so, and how detailed it was. He's kind of freaked out about it, like how detailed it was, like weaknesses, way to make it better, and how it works. It's like, Jesus, right? So, but then this also gets him thinking. It's like, okay, so he has to have some type of intelligence quirk. But then why would others look down on that? Intelligence quirks are highly sought after, you know? So why would that immediately make others look at Izuku like he's nothing? So clearly he's like, okay, something's not adding up. There's something I'm missing, because there's no way anyone would look at this and think, oh yeah, he must be like either some sort of like villain or something. He doesn't get to think on it that much though, because Izuku comes home, right? And he greets him, and then he sees, oh my God, you've been beat up again. What the fuck? Because he sees like the singed marks on his clothes too, and he's like, oh my God, what happened to you, right? And Izuku immediately kind of like, he's just like, he lights up, like he's just happy that he's just still here. He's like, oh, you must be really hungry. Like, I'm sorry it was late. I got locked in the closet again. He's like, I'll go make you some food. And it's like, what? So I was like, what the fuck are you talking? That's not okay. What are we talking about, right? And so, like, Aizawa doesn't care about the food or anything. So he's up dragging one of the med kits over and telling him in a very cat way, of course, because can't understand, like, you need to treat yourself. And he starts tearing up because, you know, Izuku's like, this is probably the first time in a while, like, anyone ever cared for him. Like, he doesn't finish the sentence, but Aizawa knows, like, Jesus. Clearly this is like he's been alone for a while. After this, it's like, it shows us like a week has passed, right? So it's been like an entire week since Coffee's been home. And for us, we get from like Izuku's point of view, where he's very observant and he's very demanding of him to treat his own injuries, because he never does. And so he'll sit by the door with a med kit every day and every time he comes home, because he gets injured every time he comes home. And he'll sit there and literally wait for Izuku to treat his injuries. And like the one time he tried to half-ass it, he immediately was like, I'm going to scratch the shit out of you. And so his injuries, you know, Aizawa's injuries have gotten better with Izuku treating them daily. And then one moment he's just talking to him about like how he really likes, you know, heroes, like underground heroes, like, oh, like Eraserhead. And, you know, Aizawa was like nodding along, like encouraging him to continue, right? Because he doubts literally anyone has ever done that. So like he's listening, continue. And then he just kind of trauma dumps, like, in the middle of it. He's like, yeah, I want to be here. It's like, but no one thinks I can. Like, when they think I should, like, give it, it's like, ooh. Like, so he starts, and he clearly almost, like, starts, like, dissociating, and, like, he's, like, 5 seconds away from, like, a panic attack. And so Aizawa does, like, the one thing he's like, well, I'm a cat. I guess I'll just be an emotional support cat. And so they both end up, falling asleep together. And when he wakes up, Aizawa was, like, mortified. He's like, I'm not a cat. God damn. Which I do like as a theme throughout this entire thing. It's like, Aizawa, like, Izuku, from his point of view, he just thinks, like, because he's a cat with a quirk, right? Intelligence quirk. So he thinks, he doesn't like be treated like a normal cat. Obviously, Aizawa was like, I'm a grown-ass man. I don't want to be treated like a cat. Even if he subconsciously kind of gives in purrs, he's like, no, I'm not a cat, right? So, like, Izuku will pet him. He's like, no, I'm not a cat. Don't pet me. And so, but, he's like, oh, your fur's just so soft. And Aizawa feel pride in that. He's like, of course I'm soft. What are you joking? Like, he takes so much pride in that. Okay. But this is where Aizawa also finally meets Izuku's mom. So she finally comes home. Inko finally comes home. So Inko, why did I say it like that? I don't know. Inko finally comes home. And so she, like, obviously she's a firefighter. Like, he saw in the pictures and everything. But he finally sees why, because she came home when they were eating breakfast. He finally sees why, she's gone for so long. It's because she belongs to they're called the unfortunate 49ers or something, where they are, like, that house is, like, that firehouse is exclusively in contract, like, in a contract with Endeavor, and has, like, the highest mortality rate. And so they basically all live on site. And so you get, like, for 2 weeks, they live there on site and they're at work, and they get 1 week off. But they triple the pay of what any normal firefighter does, right? But so he's thinking either she got real unlucky to sign that firehouse early in her career, or she really needed the money. And obviously, her being, you can look around and see her being single mom. Clearly, it was for the money. She needs it to support, them. Because even when they're signed up to that, they are locked in, like, a 5-year minimum, 5-year contract. They cannot leave. And so it makes sense why he's never seen her. Like, he's called, because, like, he's, like, they've established that she'll call every night to check up on Izuku, but she's never there. So this explains why she isn't here for, like, 2 weeks, right? And so, and she's kind of surprised. It's like, is that a cat? Why do you have a cat? And it's like, oh, that's Coffee. Like, and he's playing. It's like, oh yeah, he has a quirk. He's an intelligence quirk. Like, he's really smart. And it's like, oh, why is he drinking coffee? It's like, oh, well, he earned his name. He'll take mine if he doesn't drink his own. And so, like, he nods his head. It's like, oh, like, surprising her. It's like, oh my god, you really are a cat with a quirk, Yeah. So, but this is, like, the first time seeing it. And this is where he also, and I guess we as, like, the readers find out too that Izuku isn't technically supposed to be alone, right? So this entire time he's been in the house, like, he's been alone, right? And then we go to, because it just came out, like, her just asking questions, like, oh, and how's Mitsuki, right? And, as I was like, who the hell is that? And it's like, oh, like, they're great. Like, sometimes Kachan's, like, really loud. He recognizes that name because I was like, that's the guy, that's the boy who's, like, how they first met. He's like, oh, sometimes he be loud, so I come back here for, like, whatever. Just for some quiet to do some homework. So it's very clear that he's supposed to be with them. He's not supposed to be alone. He's supposed to be with someone. And, like, he even gives him a look. And, Izuku's, like, gives him one back of, like, I'll explain later. But, like, it shows, like, he's supposed to be with them. But obviously, with how their relationship is, that's not really gonna work out too well, is it? And I kind of did question, I'm like, why wouldn't she kind of check in like with Mitsuki? Like, why wouldn't she know? But I guess if you have like your 2 weeks on where you can't see him and you only have 1 week off, like, and it's clear that she wants to spend as much time as possible because as soon as she gets home, he has like, oh, do you want to take a nap? She's tired. It's like, no. Well, like, let's go do something like you want it. Like, let's go shopping, like for some hero merch for you. So it's very clear she wants to spend every minute with him, like, because she only gets 1 week off and then 2 weeks like living on site and not really seeing him. So I guess that makes sense why she wouldn't ask unless she like runs into Mitsuki at all and ask. But I guess that'd be why she wouldn't. But they end up going to the mall because she wants to, like, it's like, oh, she doesn't want a nap, she wants to spend time with him. So it's like, let's go to the mall, let's go buy you some hero merch, right? And he's super excited, and obviously Aizawa gets taken along for the ride. He's on his shoulders. It's like, I am a cat shouldered, like a shoulder cat now. That's nice. And so they're kind of walking around the mall, and they see the hero merch, and this is where he sees underground hero merch. And he's like, oh no. So he runs out and he sees immediately, like, he sees some other, underground hero merch, but he mainly sees, oh my god, it's Razorhead. And he's like, oh Jesus. It's like the backpack and everything. No. So he's like looking at him and he's just like, and she says, okay, you can get 5 of them, right? And so this is when Aizawa kind of starts to, like, this is his first time kind of noticing, right? And when they go to pay, the person character immediately looks at Izuku in like disgust, like, ew, right? Like, doesn't want to be even near him. But then sees his mom and just immediately is like, oh, right? Doesn't say anything, right? Like, they're forced to, so they ring it up and obviously gets a discount because firefighter. And Aizawa kind of looks at this like, what the fuck? What was that? Like, why are you looking at, And so he starts putting pieces together because as they're walking, he goes on about Razorhead, like, and he fights Quirkless too because, like, isn't that great? And, like, he notes that, like, this is, again, he keeps noting that. And then he gets the idea. It's like, either Izuku has, like, a really weak quirk or he's quirkless. And this immediately, like, for Aizawa puts, like, it immediately snaps in place. Like, this makes so much more sense, right? He doesn't have a villainous quirk. He doesn't, like, he's quirkless, right? But he's not in denial about it because, like, so few are, and for, like, a kid to be, it's like, and that would also make sense. And, the quirkless are a hell of a lot more discriminated, worse than people who are deemed with, like, villainous quirks. It's like, it'd be like, no wonder he's struggling. But he's kind of like in denial about it first. It's like, no, he can't, right? Because it's so rare. What are the chances of Izuku being quirkless? But as he observes and as he watches, as they go to different stores, he observes everyone around them. Each person's character looks at Izuku, like, in disgust. And they look at his mom and they notice that she's there. And so he takes notice of, like, what they were clearly going to do was overcharge the hell out of him, right? But seeing Izuku's mom there, they immediately back down from doing it. So, and, like, looking around as they're just walking around, he, even with, like, he can hear it, the whispers, the stares, none of them are even really subtle either. So, like, he sees everyone looking at, like, him, and he's like, if this is what he gets at a mall, what the hell's happening in the school, right? And he's thought about following him to the school before, but he's a cat, what can he do? But he's like, if this is what happens, like, and everyone's just staring, whispering, like he's like some sort of freak, it's like, what's going on in the school? And, even like then he's like looking, it's like them all whispering, but Izuku is just like, he's not even bothered by it, it doesn't register to him. But then he thinks about, again, what happened when he comes home every time, like, burn marks, he's injured, bruised. This is nothing then. In fact, this is like the best case scenario where everyone just whispers and glares at you and, like, talks bad about you. That's best case scenario than being physically assaulted. Like, that's a dream. So, and that's sad. And Aizawa recognizes that. And so he's like, this is a child. And they're all looking at him like he's a stain. And he's like, this is a child who so badly wants to achieve his dream. And so this is when he makes, a vow to himself. It's like, I'll do whatever it takes to make it so he can achieve that dream because he has potential. As soon as they get home, Izuku immediately rushes to the room. He wants to set up the figurine that he got of Eraserhead, and he's just rambling on to him. It's like, oh, like about Eraserhead. He's like, oh, and this is identifier. Like, isn't it great? Like, oh, and this is, and Aizawa immediately, like, he kind of admittedly finds it kind of weird, but not his fault. He doesn't know that he's Eraserhead. So, but he does find it nice to know that he does, have a fan, even though he doesn't really want fans. But he does find it nice to know that, he inspires Izuku to keep going and to really have hope. And so, he's thinking, like, when he's normal again, he'll thank him properly. And maybe gives him some training lessons so he can fight, like, have a chance, right? So he can stand a chance in, like, the whole, which, I mean, it still gets robots, but maybe there are rescue points, but so he can still stand a chance. It quickly kind of turned to nighttime, and Izuku, fell asleep while rambling about heroes and putting things together. And Aizawa was kind of like startled at his light doze he was going on as he was sitting on the desk. And, because Inko, goddamn, why do I add an N? Inko came in, and she put him in the bed because he fell asleep at the desk. And this is when he realizes the computer's still on. And he's like, oh my god, it's by chance. Directions. And so, but she notices the computer's still on. And so she, goes to turn off. And he does what his cats have done to him all the time. And he's seen plenty of times. Just lay across the keyboard. Just don't come near it. And so she leaves it alone. But she does thank him for being there for her son and asks him to watch over him and, to really be there for him. And, he nods because, of course, he's attached. He's not the only one. Just like kind of in the beginning where he was real kind of worried. He was real worried in the beginning where he's like, why did you quickly get this deeply attached just for a cat? And then he got attached back, so it didn't really matter, did it? But he immediately starts looking up, but he struggles because it took him like all of 10 minutes to open a browser. And as he was doing this, he was thinking of like Nezu, where his computer was down, so he had to use a normal computer. And he pointed out all the typos. And now he's like almost kind of like in the same boat. And he's like, oh my god, this sucks. this is a pain in the ass. This sucks. And so he used like a pencil as a stylus. Even that didn't help, but he finally was able to like get directions and find out like where to go, train leaving. And by the time that sunrise, it was sunrise, right? And so he looks at Izuku as he's like about to leave, and he promises that he'll be back. But he doesn't want to leave Izuku alone because, again, his mom has 1 week off where she has to go back, right? And so he promises he'll be back. And if he doesn't find like a way to get himself, like if they don't find a way to get him back to normal, like out of a cat, because, it probably should have worn off by now. And because it didn't, either thinks they have to go back to the person with the same quirk or get a different person to undo it, which takes time. Time he doesn't really have. So he gives himself 1 week. And if in that 1 week, they still don't figure it out, he book it back to Izuku because he doesn't want to leave him alone without anyone, right? Because for now he has his mom, and that gives him some comfort. He's still guilty, like he feels guilty about leaving, but he's not completely alone. He still has his mom, but he'll come back if he doesn't find anything. So he ends up making it there pretty easy. No one bats an eye to a cat, and he makes it a UA, and he immediately sets off alarms. And Vlad and like all of them are like, "Why would a cat set an alarm off? Something suspicious going on." So they try and capture him, and obviously he can't really do anything about that because, I mean, he's a cat, he can't talk. But then he Nezu completely understands him, so great. So now he's like, it's me. And so like, to make sure he's not like, to really, he like it's me, like, oh, I remember when, like, he said something that only he would know, basically. And so it's like, oh my god, it really is you. Like, you're turning into a cat. And they're, Hisashi, like, picks him up. It's like, oh my god. And so they're, like, they're worried. He's like, ooh, because they try to catch you. He's like, are you okay? Because they noticed, like, his injuries. He's like, oh no, I'm fine. I was injured before this, right? So he explains, like, oh yeah, turned to a cat. Some kids want to play kick the cat. Wasn't great. Anyway, I got taken in by this kid. So here we are. It's like, Jesus. And this is when he finally does realize, Aizawa, where it sinks in, this is how Nezu has to live. People didn't care that he was a cat. They didn't give a shit. He was living off of basically, like, some people's kindness, like that girl and Izuku. But for the most part, most people didn't care and were real quick to, like, injure him too. Again, going back to Katsuki, and like they didn't care. And so he realizes, damn, this is how Nezu has to live, where people don't care if he dies, either because of them or indirectly. They don't care. But they get into Recovery Girl, and because hopefully, a cat, but, like, injuries, whatever, still. And so, now that, like, Hisashi doesn't want to leave his side at all, even though he has a class, he's like, he doesn't really want to leave his side or anything. But Nezu ends up giving him the day off and says he'll have someone cover for him. So he ends up taking him home because, how's that gonna deal with the other cats? I'll look at him. Maybe he'll understand them. I don't know, but maybe not though. But that's where this ends. Not that it's complete because it's 7 chapters, and this hasn't been updated in 8 months. Not that the person hasn't been active. They've been active. They were active a couple weeks ago, just not on this specific book they were, working on. But still recommend to read. There's just so many possibilities of where this could go, especially since, Aizawa has, met, Bakugo early on now and seen how he is, how he treats them, how everyone in that school clearly treats Izuku. So it's like, how is this going to affect him? And you buy the description in, like, the little summary of the fanfic too. It's like, clearly he doesn't end up turning back in 1 week, maybe, most likely. And so he ends up going back to Izuku still as a cat. And so, like, because he ends up meeting Alma, he's like, I don't like what you're saying to him. And so it's like, there's so many possibilities that could happen with this. Anyway, that's all the time I have for a day. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye!